Welcome, everyone, to Moxie Bets presented by Caesars Sportsbook. I'm your host, Katie Mox, and we've got a great show for you today, as usual. We're going to get some intel from Caesars and discuss which NFL teams we are the most and the least comfortable with betting on their season win totals. We'll also take a look at my favorite division, the NFC West, and figure out which team has the best value to win the division. And of course, I will hit you with my Mox Locks. We're going to bring back in one of our favorite cappers, Mr. Kenny Bets Big. Kenny, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Katie. How was your 4th of July?
My 4th of July was great, although it was my first time in New York for the 4th of July. I went to Rockaway Beach and the Rockaways, and I have never been manhandled by waves like I was here. That current is strong. I lost my sunglasses. I got knocked down to it was wild. I had to fight for my life in there, but it was fun. How was yours?
Nah, well, thank God you made it here, right?
Yes, I'm alive.
It was good. I may or may not have hit my over on hot dogs eaten. Wasn't anywhere close to Joey Chestnut, but I'm thinking maybe I should start training for next year, take the champ down.
Okay, well, one, I want to know how many you ate, and then I want to follow up on the Joey Chestnut thing.
Probably like 12 to 15. Nothing crazy, but
12 to 15? Now, were you in a contest, or was this just like throughout the day?
It was just like throughout the day. So like I was at the beach, I had a few. Then I went to a barbecue, I had a few. It was just everyone. They're just like handing hot dogs out. I guess it's like the staple, for 4th of July.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, just so anyone who doesn't know, Kenny is an actually very slim guy. So the fact that you downed 12 hot dogs in one day is wild. Now, I have been known to get a couple Dodger dogs. Maybe I think my most is 3 at a Dodgers game when I was living in Los Angeles. But I love that. But let's talk about Joey Chestnut. I mean, the guy is just unstoppable. And then he like almost choked out one of the hecklers there, which was crazy. I mean, he's just like an American hero.
Yeah, that was it was an intense scene, right? The guy comes in on a crutch. He's defending his title for the 15th year. He's eaten over 60 hot dogs on the 4th of July. And you know what the grossest thing to me is with that is I'm very picky when it comes to my hot dogs. Like I won't eat water dogs. They have to be very burnt, right? They have to be crispy. It's so gross to me how they dunk them in the water and the bread, and then they're able to just shove them down their gullet. But I mean, power to those guys. You see like the calories and the fat content that they're eating after the contest is done. And I just wonder, how do they feel the next day, right?
How do they feel 5 minutes after? I mean, just disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But you know what they say, death taxes and Joey Chestnut on the 4th of July to win the hot dog eating contest. All right, Kenny, stay right there. I'm going to start with my Mox thought of the day. So one of my favorite subjects to talk about, of course, is the Warriors. And there's some Kevin Durant news. A lot more reports over the holiday weekend about Kevin Durant's trade request, one of which said that the Warriors superstars have been in contact with Durant. And while a reunion is unlikely, it's not something that we can count out completely. It's not out of the question. So the Warriors are currently listed at plus 600 to win the NBA championship next season, to run it back. That's second behind the Celtics. Is it worth it to put money down on that bet now, since adding Durant to that mix could make them the clear favorite? Now, my answer to this is yes, but it has nothing to do with Kevin Durant. One, I've been hot on the Warriors to run this back, just simply based on the fact that they kept their big 3 and they have such an incredible young pool, pun intended, of talent. And look, Kevin Durant should have never left the Warriors. I think it's pretty clear who kind of won that. The Warriors have a championship and Durant has struggled with the Nets. I said last week, I don't think that Kevin Durant is leaving the Nets. I don't think that anyone can put a package together worthy enough for Kevin Durant that they are willing to give up. They're not going to give up Wiggins. They're not going to give up Poole. And the Warriors definitely have a reputation of, this history of grooming these young players and not giving them up. They could have made some trades at the trade deadline last year when they were contenders. Now, of course, that ended up working out. They didn't do it. But one, Kevin Durant is not coming back. I think he stays with the Nets. And two, I think the Warriors absolutely can run it back. All right, Kenny, you heard what I had to say. We're going into Capper's Corner. What do you think?
Katie, I hate to do it to you and Dub Nation, but first, there's zero, and I'm strong on this, that 0% chance that Kevin Durant is back.
Oh, yes.
And here's why, right? Like, had the Warriors not just won a title, maybe he goes back. But think about how much, crap Kevin Durant got when he went there about how he's a bandwagon, he can't win on his own. And then the way he leaves, right? Like, he wasn't like a wasn't like a nice parting of the ways. Like him and
No.
Draymond were beefing, and there was trash talk. Even this year, like Kevin Durant was talking trash during the Warriors games, right? Tweeting out little like innuendos and little
Yep.
jabs. So I say 0% chance that he goes there, because he would be the softest player in sports history. Like, he would get dragged through the coals if he goes back to the Warriors. Like,
More than LeBron gets dragged for switching teams every 5 seconds?
yeah, because the thing with LeBron is he goes to teams that have not won before, and then
Yeah.
he wins with them, right? Other than the Lakers, obviously.
True.
But the Lakers were in shambles before he went there, and he
He
won.
won. He won with the Lakers in the Mickey Mouse Cup, which I still think stands. So, you know.
Yeah, it stands. It does, because it was a different element, right? Like, totally new atmosphere for these players. No crowd. It was just different environment. So, yeah, of course it stands. They still had to beat the teams. But, yeah, as far as the Warriors winning a title, listen, I wouldn't put my money on it, but it's definitely possible. They still have Stephen Curry, who, in my opinion, is top 5, maybe top 10 if you don't think he's top 5. But he's top 5 player in my book of all time in NBA history, right? He's literally changed the way the game is played. When we were young, people wanted to be Vince Carter and Kobe and, dunking on people. Now you watch high school AAU teams, they're just pulling up from half court, draining threes. So yeah, I mean, they always have a chance, but when you look at teams like the Bucks, the Heat, the Lakers, I know that sounds crazy, but the Lakers, if they get LeBron back healthy, AD back healthy, maybe they make a few moves. I just think there's a lot of teams it's very hard to run it back in any professional sport of winning a title. So yeah, I wouldn't put my money on the Warriors.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, the Lakers to me are such like in disarray. And even though they have LeBron and they do have AD can't stay healthy to save his life. I actually think that the Clippers are probably the biggest threat to the Warriors in the West. Obviously, the Celtics have beefed up again. So I hear you. It is hard to run it back, but I think if anyone can do it, it's definitely the Warriors. All right, let's move on to the NFL here. The Bears. This is an interesting one. So according to our good friends at Caesars Sportsbook, the Bears win total, which opened up and still remains at 6.5, is by far the most popular NFL win total under bet. Not only have they received the most under money among NFL teams at Caesars Sportsbook, they nabbed 67% more money than the next closest under, which is the Falcons. So, Kenny, how do you feel about that win total for the Bears? You think they can get over 6.5?
So it's tough, right? Because looking at the Bears, the team is terrible. All right.
Yes.
Their offense was anemic last year,
Yes.
but they have Justin Fields, who, in my opinion, I think he's going to be a star in the NFL. I think he's a very talented player, and it's a quarterback league. The fact that all of that money is on the under for that total, it opened at 6.5. It's staying there. I'm shocked that it hasn't bumped down, right? Or
Right.
at least moved in any direction, trying to get money on the other side. That's usually what the sportsbook's goal is: get even money on the under, over, just so they're not really at a liability for anything. The fact that it's stood firm at 6.5 kind of tells me the Bears are going to win 7 games. You look at the schedule; it's doable. It's tough, but I think the Bears can get it done, and especially at the plus money price, I like it.
Okay, I see what you're saying. And I think that is a good point to make. If you see that the book hasn't changed the win total at all when so much money is on the under, that's a really good thing to look out for. I'm going to go under with this because, Kenny, I looked at their schedule and they're only listed as a favorite 2 times next season. They've got 1 game that's a pick 'em, and they are under 3-point underdogs only 3 times, which is an implied record of 2-14-1. Like you said, they have a poor passing game. Yes, they have Justin Fields. I expect him to improve, but they have one of the worst receiving rooms, I think, in the entire NFL. They did beef up their defense, but is that going to be enough? They've got a new coach. I think there's going to be some growing pains there. And they have a lot of cap space that's going to open up in 2023. So I could kind of see this as a little bit of a tank season for them and, wanting to gear up and get, a lot more players in the 2023 season. So I'm going to go under, but you do make a good point there.
Yeah, anytime I see, like we talked about it, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago, about the Lightning total, right? And the Lightning Avalanche, how those games were flying over and the odds makers were just keeping that total right where it was. And then that game went under. I think it was game 4 we talked about. So anytime I see like a ton of money coming in on one side and let's say the odds or the win total, whatever, it kind of stays firm, that's just the sports books kind of telling me they're taking a stand there. They think the Bears are going to win 7 games. So that's why I like the over there.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Okay, so Kenny, who are you the most comfortable with betting an over on season win totals this season?
So I may be a little biased because I am Tom Brady's biggest fan. But it has to be the Bucks, right? 11 and a half wins. It's even money, so you're not paying the vig and laying out extra money to gamble. Tom Brady looks younger somehow this year than he did last year. I don't know what the guy's doing, but it's working. He's
Yeah,
somehow defeated Father Time.
it's
Um,
incredible.
he's talked about it at multiple times how one of the biggest things he really regrets about his career is not completing that perfect season. He's talked about how he really wants to have a perfect season. And then you just look at the division that they're in, the Falcons, the Panthers, the Sean Payton-less Saints. I mean, the division is terrible. According to Warren Sharp at Sharp Football, the Bucks have the seventh easiest strength of schedule, right? So
Wow, which is
they have a takeoff.
crazy considering they have Tom Brady and they were so good last season.
Yeah, it is. It is crazy, but it's the stars aligning for Tom Brady yet again.
Yeah.
So 11 and a half wins, I think they hit that easy. I think they win 13, 14 games this year.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm trying to look up a stat right now that I saw yesterday on Twitter about Tom Brady that he was actually regressing. Oh, here it is. So Tom Brady will have his worst supporting cast in Tampa Bay this year. He also showed some slight decline. Check out these splits. So for the first 8 games, he was 25.1 points per game. He threw for 2,650 yards, 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. The last 11. Now there were some injuries here, so we have to take that into consideration. He dropped down to 18.79 points per game, threw for 3,266 yards, and he had 21 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. What say you about that?
When you say some injuries, I think you're being generous. There's a ton of injuries on the offensive side of the ball.
Yes.
So, again, it looked almost like Tom Brady back in New England, where he's throwing the ball to guys that look like me out on the field.
Yeah.
So, Mike Evans should be healthy. The receiving team, they should be healthier this year. So I think I don't put much stock into him regressing, right? Like, look, we see him on Instagram and all these, he looks great, the guy. Like, I don't know what he's doing, but
He's not eating 12 hot dogs. I can tell you that.
no, yeah, he's definitely not eating 12 hot dogs.
Oh my God. Okay. So I could see that. And I think I agree with you there on that one. So I'm going the Chargers. And I feel like you and I already talked about this the last time that you were on. Right now, their win total is set to 10. The over on that is -115 on Caesars Sportsbook. We talked about it. They addressed the problems on defense. They added Khalil Mack. They have one of the easier schedules leading up to the bye week. They got Seattle, the Jags, the Browns, who likely won't have Watson, the Texans, etc. Only the Chiefs and the Raiders, I feel like, are going to be a threat to them in that first half and really all season. But I do think they could probably split wins with them. I have them at 11 wins this season, and someone did comment on our video on social, on Omaha Social, that the Chargers are like the hottest pick early in the season. It never works out. And you're right, commenter. But I think this year is the year. So I do think the Chargers over the 10 is a good bet. I see them at 11.
Yeah, again, we both like the Chargers, right? And the only thing that worries me is what that commenter said, right? Like last year, it was the Cleveland Browns, how there was all this hype around the Browns. This was their year. The defense was stacked. And then we saw what happened to the Cleveland Browns last year. They fell right on their face. Yeah. So while I definitely think Herbert is much better than Baker, and the additions to that team are, you can't. J.C. Jackson, one of the best cover corners in the NFL. Khalil Mack, obviously, we don't even have to talk about him. We all know what he offers. So, yeah, I mean, how do you not like that? The only thing that worries me there is the division is very tough. The Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Broncos. Yeah. Personally, I think the Broncos are getting a little bit I don't think Russell Wilson is going to do what people think he's going to do there.
No, me either. Me either. And I love Russell Wilson.
Because, I mean, I think so. His receiving core got worse. Yeah. So, I don't see the Broncos being the powerhouse that, people think they're going to be.
No, it's like Russell Wilson goes there and all of a sudden they think that he's going to bring that Seattle offense when obviously it's going to be an upgrade from Drew Lock and all the quarterback problems they've been having. But also their defense is going to suffer. They've got no more Vic Fangio. They have no more defensive mastermind with that team. So I'm not hot on the Broncos. I actually like them under their win total. All right, Kenny, which team are you the most comfortable with taking the under on next season?
As a tri-state area guy, it's got to be the New York Jets. Yeah. Few reasons. We've seen what the Jets do. They're just like an anemic franchise. I put not the Mets now since they've switched owners, but before they switched owners, it was the Mets, the Jets, and the Knicks, all in that same category where the leadership at the top, just for whatever reason, always seems to mess it up. They draft the wrong team. Everything they put together just doesn't work out. And that's what the Jets are, right? They always have good drafts. People get hyped up about them. Wow, the Jets, great draft. They signed this guy, and there's hype around him. And then again, they come out and they stink. So yeah, I'm not high on the Jets at all. They have the 6th hardest projected schedule.
Why?
So,
yeah, it's a gauntlet. It's crazy. I had Eric Coleman on the show on Friday, who's a former Jet and our Jets insider, and he was more optimistic about it. But I was like, homeboy, we got to look at this schedule. It is a gauntlet.
yeah,
I mean,
let's look at the schedule, right? I'm going to rattle off the games. Week 1 at the Ravens, or home versus the Ravens, loss.
Yeah.
Right. Week 2 at Cleveland. I mean, probably no Deshaun Watson. That's a tough game, but I think Cleveland wins.
Yep.
Then we got the Bengals, the Steelers, the Dolphins, the Packers, at the Broncos, Pats, Bills, and then at the Pats. The Jets could, in theory, start 0-10 this year. And yeah, so 5.5, it's plus 150. How do you not like that?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I took the under on Friday on this too. So I agree with you. I'm sorry to our producer, Sam. He's not happy hearing all of this, but we're both taking the under on the Jets this year. Okay, now let's talk about my favorite division, the NFC West. Right now, the Rams, of course, are the favorite to run it back at plus 135. Now, my Niners are next at plus 180. The Cardinals are set at plus 300. And the less we say about Seattle, probably the better. Who is your pick to win the NFC West next season?
So, they did me very well last year, winning the Super Bowl. I had a big future bet on the Rams. So I got to stick with the Rams. They're plus 135. I still think they're the best team in that division. The Niners at plus 180 is also a tempting price, right?
Yeah.
You're getting plus money there. The defense is probably top 5 defense in the NFL. The quarterback situation does scare me a little, though. We don't know who's starting there. I will say this, though. Something that was when I was looking at those odds, you could literally bet $100 on the Rams and $100 on the 49ers. And if one of those two teams wins, you're making money, right? So, you're in the green. I don't think that's a bad strategy at all because no DeAndre Hopkins. I think the Cardinals are going to struggle this year. And then we already talked about it. The Seahawks are probably going to be one of the bottom 3 teams in the league, right? So,
which, as a Niners fan, I have to say I'm happy that the 12th man will be suffering in this next year because they've given us a lot of problems. But I agree with you. If I had to pick one, it has to be the Rams only because of the quarterback situation. If we have Jimmy Garoppolo, of course I feel more comfortable because I know what he can do. Now, Trey Lance is the flashy one and there's a lot of high hopes for him. But the reality is we don't really know what he can do. And you have to expect a little bit of growing pains and mistakes, especially in the beginning of the season. So I would have to say, yes, I would go with the Rams, even though it pains me to say so. But I like your idea of sprinkling a little bit on both of them because to your point, either one of those, you're going to get some money back. And I pretty much think only one of those two is going to win the division. So that's a very good strategy.
Thank you.
Okay, the time has come for Mox Locks. These are my best bets and Kenny's best bet for the evening today on the MLB slate. And first, I am taking, and this is laughable maybe, the SF Giants minus 1.5 on the run line versus Arizona. This is at plus 122. And the reason why it's so high with plus money is because the Giants have been god awful. I mean, really awful, especially over the last 2 weeks. They have only won 2 of their last 10 games. And defensively, it has been laughable. The amount of runs that they've given up, I can't even handle. E40 is just sick about it over here on my shelf here. But look, the Diamondbacks I think are worse, not necessarily in this series. They are up 2-0. We've got Cobb on the mound tonight. He's a right-handed pitcher. He's coming off of no runs in 5 innings during his last outing, which was just on Friday. The Diamondbacks are 2-6 in their last 8 games versus a right-handed starter. And the Giants overall, they're 10-3 in their last 13 meetings in Arizona. I don't think they're going to get swept in this. At plus 122, I feel like it's worth a gamble. Kenny, what do you think?
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. It's a tough bet for me to make because the Giants have looked so bad. And the Diamondbacks have looked pretty good in this series, right? The offense is waking up. The bats are alive. But I will say this for the people listening, just because it's a strategy. The fact that the Giants are on the road, I like it a little more because when you're taking that minus 1.5 for the home team, you're losing about 11% of production because they won't bat in the bottom half of the ninth, right? If they're winning.
Yep.
So the fact that they're on the road, I don't hate it. Personally, I like to stay away from the -1.5 though, just because I feel like they're sketchy. How many times are they up 2 runs in the bottom of the ninth, or
Yeah.
the Diamondbacks will score a run and then screw your bet up?
Yeah, I feel like the money line's almost only -140, so it's not too bad. But since they haven't been looking so great, it's at +122. I'm just gonna roll the dice on this one. All right, and for my second pick of the night, I'm taking Kyle Schwarber over 1.5 total bases. This is at +102. So Schwarber has been absolutely red hot recently, especially versus the Nationals. He had 2 home runs last night. He has had a home run in 7 of his last 12 games. He has 151 total bases so far this season. I think the reason why this is only at 1.5 bases is because he's actually 1-5 in 6 plate appearances versus Josiah Gray. Gray right now has an ERA of 4.22 this season, but he's 0-1 versus the Phillies. And the last start, he gave up 10 hits versus Miami. I wouldn't mind throwing a little bit on his home run at +215. However, I feel better about the total bases at 1.5.
Yeah, listen, you talked about how hot Kyle Schwarber is. I actually bet the Nationals last night, first 5, and Kyle Schwarber ended that real quick in the first inning, leadoff home run, and it was game over after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one, because especially the bases, because you can get it on one home run from Schwarber, which we all know that's his specialty, and you cashed. So first inning, maybe he leads off with another one tonight.
Okay, we love it. What's your lock for the night, Kenny?
So I'm going to go back with the Tampa Bay Rays money line.
Ooh.
It's sitting at +110 right now. A couple reasons why. One, Corey Kluber, he's actually looked pretty good this year. He hasn't looked terrible. Red Sox starting their number 4 prospect, has never pitched in the major league level, going up against a Tampa Bay Rays lineup, which is starting to heat up. And then the Tampa Bay Rays have just owned Boston at Fenway Park over the last few years. I think they're like 16-4 over their last 20 games at Fenway Park. So you give me the Rays here at plus money, and especially when the Boston Red Sox, they're welcoming the New York Yankees to Fenway tomorrow. So huge look ahead spot. We saw the Red Sox, they got dominated by the Yankees the first time they played this year. I think Boston is really looking forward to tomorrow to really just, quiet the Yankee fans up when they come to Fenway Park.
Yeah, I love that. Yankees with a surprising loss last night versus the Pirates, too. So I love that spot. Also, I've just been stocked down on the Red Sox. I feel like they only really do well against teams with a losing record or outside of their division. So I do think this is a good spot for the Rays. All right, Kenny, thank you so much for joining us today. You can find him at Kenny Bets Big on Twitter and Instagram. And before we say goodbye, make sure you hit me up at Katie Mox with all of your gambling questions, and we could answer them on the next show. This was Moxie Bets presented by Caesars Sportsbook. Have a great day.